Chief Gani Fawehinmi is here with us. We thank you and welcome you for being a part of this debate today, sir.
Thank you very much. For seeking a mandate of from the Nigerian masses is that we have championed the cause of the poor, the neglected, the cheated, and the oppressed people of Nigeria for several years, for which I personally have gone to prison for more than 15 times, and I've been arrested 29 times, and I've faced politically motivated criminal charges by various governments for 15 times. My quest is to liberate the Nigerian masses, and the theme of our campaign and our manifesto is the abolition of poverty and corruption, and to create a better society so that the masses of our people can enjoy the fruits of God-given Nigeria. Precisely, we are concerned with those things that make the Nigerian masses poor: education, health, housing, employment, water, electricity, food, and security of life and property. And I represent the National Conscience Party in our quest to save the Nigerian masses who have been the victims of the looting spree of various governments and who have borne the brunt of misgovernance of our country over the years. That is the reason why we have chosen to come out to contest this election. And we are the only political party that is masses-driven and people's-oriented. National Conscience Party. From the motto of the party, it is obvious, and that is abolition of poverty. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chief Gani Fawehinmi. Shuaibu, you have
yes.
The next question.
Chief, what will you consider the greatest challenge of your administration if you become president?
The greatest challenge of my administration is corruption. Corruption has been the cankerworm that has eaten so deep into the psyche of Nigeria. And it has been the very source of our fundamental problems. 45% of our national income is wasted due to mismanagement and corruption. And corruption at the top is the bane of our society. And I tend to teach some lessons, because those who bear the brunt of this corruption have been those who have been refused education as a result of what those who have stolen the resources of our country plead as scarce resource. They have not been employed. Millions of Nigerians are not employed because of the resources that have been stolen from the country and taken abroad by those who have governed us over the years. Food is cast on the table of Nigerian people because of the stolen wealth of Nigerian people by those who have governed this country. Education has been ignored and neglected as a result of the corruption being perpetrated by those who have governed this country. And water is scarce to the Nigerian masses, both in rural area and the urban area, because of the corruption that has been inflicted on them by various governments. Therefore, corruption is at the very heart of our program. And we are going to deal with corruption from 15th of January 1966 to May 2003. And if you went through the latest report of the Auditor General, Vincent Azie, the Auditor General, whose position is guaranteed under Section 85, Section 85, 86, and Section 87 of the Constitution, this present government have been accused of corruption, ineptitude, forgery, over-invoicing, as well as disregard of financial instruction by government-appointed Auditor General. And instead of the Auditor General to be given accolade, General Olusegun Obasanjo sacked him for being honest. So corruption is going to be the very, very heart of our major involvement. And therefore, I'm going to tackle corruption head on, and I'm prepared to pay the price, even with my life.
Thank you very much, sir. The follow-up question to that, the calls for a national conference. Would you consider a national conference as panacea to the controversial issue of confederacy and the concept of nationhood?
National conference is at the very core of National Conscience Party's program. We need national conference to resolve all the fundamental problems of this country. National Conscience Party believes in the sovereign national conference because there are complaints everywhere in the federation. We have religious clashes, we have communal clashes, we have those who are the brewers of water, the hewers of water, and the brewers of water, the hewers of wood of Nigerian economy being ignored and neglected. And since Adakpaboro, for example, in 1966, decided to attack what has been happening in our society because of the poverty inflicted by those who have been providing the wealth of this country, there is need for every sector of Nigerian society to assemble in a place and for us to discuss Nigerian problems. Therefore, National Conscience Party believes in the Sovereign National Conference, and we have already come up with a position paper how that should be done. We called on the president to do it when he first came into office. He said he had already got the mandate to rule. And every day, Nigeria keeps on decaying. There is complaint from every section of Nigerian society, from the northwest, from the northeast, from the north central, from the southwest, from the south-south, from the southeast, everywhere in the federation. Therefore, we need to meet and discuss all our problems under the sun so that there can be peace and social justice in Nigeria, and there be equity and there stability. National Conscience believes in that because, after all, sovereignty belongs to the people of Nigeria. Under Section 14 of the Constitution, sovereignty belongs to the people of Nigeria, from whom governments derive all authorities and power. And therefore, there should be a sovereign national conference. Sovereign there means that after the conference of all the people who assemble to deliberate on the sovereign national conference, then the final product of the deliberation will be the constitution of the country, and then people will decide in a referendum whether they accept that constitution or not. But we have never had a referendum before, and it's not going to be a tribal sovereign national conference, because not only shall we have groups coming into the sovereign national conference, people will be elected from their own local government. We have 734 local governments in this country. Each local government will elect a candidate to the sovereign national conference. In addition, there are interest groups: the lawyers, the journalists, the doctors, the engineers, the accountants, the army, the navy, the police, and all groups will be asked to come to the national conference. They present their candidates to the sovereign national conference, and then we will all discuss the problems of Nigeria. Whatever comes out of that will be the new article of faith for Nigeria, and people will vote whether yes or no. Then there will be a new beginning, there will be a new Nigeria. So at the moment, Nigeria has not properly crystallized.
Thank you. Shagun, I think you have
yes, sir.
follow-up to that.
No, maybe a different question.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Since 1960, when Nigeria attained independence, many schools of thought have advanced the argument that Nigeria lacks an ideology. If elected president, how would you integrate an ideological framework in the formulation and execution of public policy for the accelerated development of Nigeria?
Thank you very much. There are certain basic things that count in any country, because without people, there is no country. A landmass cannot register as a member of the United Nations. Therefore, people must come first. The policy, the thrust of any economic policy must be people-driven. And therefore, all those things that inhibit the quality of life of an average Nigerian must be given total attention. For example, the issue of food. According to the FAO, 25% of fiscal allocation must be given to food production, mechanized food production. In addition, it is the duty of government to subsidize food production so that food should be cheap in our society. For example, in America, Japan, and Europe in 1999 devoted $140 billion to the production of food in terms of subsidy to farmers. Only 2 years ago, the EU countries gave $82 billion euro to the farmers in Europe. Last year, America gave $89 billion to the farmers in terms of subsidy. General Olusegun is denying the people of this country subsidy. The farmers need subsidy to be able to give cheap food to the Nigerian people. Education. The ideology there is also determined by the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, that has prescribed 26% that must be given to education. My government will ensure that every stratum of every layer of government in Nigeria, local government, state government, federal government, gives 26% of fiscal allocation to education, because we need 450 billion naira to be able to catch up with the civilized countries every year on education. In 1965, why Japan is now one of the leading countries of the world without any natural resource, was that in 1965, Japan decided to give 28 to 39% of her budget to education, and that amounted to 7% of her GDP. And that is why Japan today has become one of the richest countries in the world, with 586 universities and a population of 120 million. Nigeria has a population of 128.7 million, and Japan has 586 universities, 2,668,000 students, 144,000 lecturers, 1 lecturer to 18 students. In Nigeria today, it is not so. Federal General who gave 1.8% to education in this present budget, which he presented for 765 billion naira. Last year, he presented a budget of 1,064 billion and gave only 5% to education. Therefore, the ideology of our party in respect of education will be the list that UNESCO has prescribed, 26%. Ditto for other areas.
Thank you, sir. I hope we'll have the opportunity later on for you to expatiate on the other areas that you have in mind. But meanwhile, as a follow-up to that, you're mentioning billions in aid from outside of Nigeria. What will be your development imperatives, Chief Gani Fawehinmi, for foreign investment if elected president? For foreign investment if elected president, development imperatives, yes.
The basic duty of a Nigerian president is to make every Nigerian a participant in the economic activities of this country and not observers. 85% of Nigerians today are observers. They are not participants. It is incumbent on Nigeria, it is incumbent on any government in Nigeria to make every Nigerian participant of the economic activities of this country. Why are they observers? First, the issue of corruption. 2, it is insane for a country to allow the cost of funds to run through the roof. Today, it is between 35% and 35% to go to a bank and borrow for development, to open factories, to establish businesses. Apart from the collateral, you have to pay interest rate of 35 to 35%. Whereas in countries that practice market forces economy, like America, for example, the bastion of market forces economy, in the year 2001, the American Federal Reserve Bank, headed by Alan Greenspan, between January and November, intervened 11 times to reduce interest rate from 7.5% in January 2001 in America to 1.35% in November. In my own case, it will be a matter of immediacy that to encourage Nigerians to be participant in the economic activities of their country, I will reduce interest rate to a single digit in the first 3 months of the administration. And it is going to be between 3 and 5%, so that banking must be related to the economic development of our people. Secondly, the second imperative is the exchange rate mechanism. It is absolutely crazy for a country that makes $50 million from oil per day, that makes $18 billion, $225 million per annum from oil, and translated to the exchange rate of 106 naira today, that makes 2,555 billion naira from oil, one single source of revenue. Therefore, it is clear that the exchange rate mechanism is definitely on the high side and is against economic development. Therefore, an exchange rate that in a country that makes such money to be paying 136 naira to $1 at the autonomous market and to be paying 214 naira to £1 is not acceptable to the National Congress Party. Gambia there, that has no resource. We paid the civil servants of Gambia for years. We sent Guadabi to be their commander-in-chief for 2 years. Gambia has no oil, like Nigeria, or to the capacity of Nigeria. But Gambia dialysis, which is the union dollar currency, is $21 to $1, with a population of 1-2 million people.
Thank you. You might continue. Please, could we hear you? So we'll allow you to land on that issue.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Therefore, if Gambia can be charged, can put our exchange rate of our currency to 21 naira to $21 to $1, Nigeria has no business making a dollar at 136 naira. I'm going to reduce it to encourage people to be involved in the economic activity of this country, so that the exchange rate mechanism will reflect the strength of our economy. And therefore, it is the decision of the National Congress Party that the first 3 months in office, I, as the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, will reduce it to 10 naira to $1.
Sorry. Thank you. Thank you very much, Chief Gani Fawehinmi. We wish to remind the audience that we should keep our points and opinions to ourselves and allow the debate to go on from this end. Thank you very much. Shuaibu?
Yes. Chief Fawehinmi, prolonged military rule in Nigeria has given the country a negative image abroad. What specific steps would you take to improve Nigeria's image abroad if elected president?
To improve Nigerian image abroad, I don't need to go out of the country 143 times, as General Olusegun had done. I don't need to slip out of the country 365 days, as General Olusegun has done, and yet is not able to bring investment into this country to his heart's desire. He wasted the resources of this country going abroad and leaving the governance of our country, and therefore throwing Nigeria into chaos in his absence. I will stay in this country. I will not leave this country for 4 years. I can send, there are ministers who will go out of this country to attend meetings of the United Nations and so on and so forth. Therefore, I will stay in this country to govern Nigeria. And in governing Nigeria and to encourage investment, I will first empower Nigerian people. My plan is not to emphasize foreign investors. My plan is to empower Nigerians, to wake them up from their poverty slumber by engaging them, by pumping money into education. As I've told you, that we need 450 billion, and 250 billion we have to come from the federal government, 150 billion, 135 billion we have to come from the state government, the local government we have to find 50 billion, and the corporate body, the businesses, we have to find the rest. I have to stay in this country to make that possible. In respect of agriculture, I have to stay in this country to ensure that Nigerians are fed and that we meet the standard of the Food and Agriculture Organization. Furthermore, there is an aspect of which is very important. I am not going to accept that Nigeria should be made a dumping ground for all sorts of useless products. We have about 56 juices coming to Nigeria. We have what we call just juice. We have 5 alive, 5 dead, and all sorts of nonsense being imported into this country. I am going to restrict importation where Nigerian men and women are able to manufacture for Nigerians and encourage them. So that is an aspect. And secondly, under the employment clause, now there is an aspect of the Constitution which is being ignored by the Nigerian government. Section 16, subsection 2D of the Constitution provides that every Nigerian who is unemployed must be given unemployment benefit, otherwise called social security. No government since 1999 has obeyed Section 16, Section 2D. My government will give to the unemployed people because we are going to create Ministry of Unemployment, and we are going to get the statistics of all those unemployed all over Nigeria. And every month, people will be paid unemployment benefit in consonance with Section 16, Section 2D of the Constitution. Now, that is an aspect of our developmental program, so that Nigerians will be involved in it. And I have to bring out the prices of food. How can you imagine it that fried plantain, which the common people eat, rose from 10 naira in 1999 to 50 naira, a percentage increase of 300%.
Thank you very much, Chief Gani Fawehinmi. We know that, well, we just wish to draw your attention to Rule 13 of this presidential debate, if you do not mind, and I'll read it to your hearing once more as we go on. Rule 13 states, candidates must focus only on issues and be positive. And 2, there shall be no personal attack or negative attack on any person or on each other, and that the language shall be presidential, dignified, and that which enhances the good image of the office of the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, which you seek. So I hope that you bear this in mind, Chief Gani Fawehinmi, as we go to another issue that we wish that you will shed some light on. The Nigerian military. How do you intend, if elected president, to reinforce and reposition the Nigerian military as a regional power in Africa through the instrumentality of such arrangements like ECOMOG?
The primary purpose of governance is stated in Section 14 of Section 2B of the Constitution, and that is the welfare and the security of the citizens shall be the primary purpose of government. The welfare comes first, the security comes second. I don't see any sense in securing the poverty of our country. I don't see any sense in bringing out soldiers to secure the poverty of millions of Nigerians. Even the soldiers themselves are poor. Many of them live in poor barracks. They cannot send their children to school. They cannot feed their children. They cannot put 3 square meals on the table. Many of the rank and file are in agony. And therefore, the system we adopt today is not proper. And I will first look into the books, because when Vincent Azie called on General Danjuma, the Minister of Defense, to bring the details about how he spent billions of naira, he refused to bring the books, contrary to Section 87 of the Constitution. I will take care of the military. But of course, the essence of our party, the essence of our governance of this country is to lift the military, just like the police, from the doldrum or the poverty that has engulfed the rank and file of the military. Let me tell you this. The cantonment, Ikeja cantonment, is very close to my house. Well, about 50 yards from my house, or meters from my house. Every 4 a.m., they come in their hundreds to come and take water in my house. I've used submersible pipe machine, more than 3 or 4 or 5 every month, buying them so that they can be able to take water. If a government cannot even provide water in the barracks, what type of government is that? That is seeking security and is seeking allegiance from the armed forces of our people. So the armed forces are also part of the Nigerian society, and they must partake of the program of the National Conscious Party in terms of food, in terms of education, in terms of health, in terms of water, in terms of electricity. So it's not a different planet. The army is not a different planet. But I can tell you this very clearly from our investigation: the army too are suffering. The members of the armed forces are suffering. The members of the police are suffering. That's why the police the other day wanted to go on strike, and I backed them and I supported them because of the poverty that has been inflicted on them by the Commander-in-Chief of Nigerian Forces.
Thank you very much, Gani Fawehinmi. Except that you didn't touch on the other aspect of the question, building them into a regional power.
Well, regional power really does not really lie in the number of soldiers or members of the Air Force or the Navy. The strength of any country is in its economy. The economy of Nigeria is collapsing, and that is why we're not taken seriously anywhere. South Africa has a better respect than Nigeria because it has a better economy than Nigeria. We are the largest in Africa, but we do not maintain any respect in any part of this of the country of Africa. We help them. We help to liberate many of them in East Africa and in Southwest Africa. We help them in West Africa. But after the deed had been done, where they turned elsewhere because of the way leadership, as we try to show it outside Nigeria, is not reflected domestically. So the domestic happiness of our people, the joy of our people, must be the basic and fundamental law for any government, so that it will then impart on how you are looked at abroad or outside the country. So I take domestic happiness of Nigerians, the 128.7 million Nigerians, first and foremost, including the members of the armed forces. Once the economy is in shape, then we are respected, then we are able. After all, Japan has not sent in any troops outside Japan to govern any part of the world, but Japan is controlling a large chunk of the world in terms of economic power, in terms of economic supremacy, in terms of economic control. And that's what I want for Nigeria, to be in Africa, so that our good will dot every part of Africa, so that our economic strength will be felt in every part of Africa, not that we are looked at as an economic pariah nation.
Thank you very much, Gani Fawehinmi. Shoaib?
Yeah, maybe a follow-up to that question. Some people argue that the role of the military in the region's politics is to further secure the country. Would you accede to that?
Well, because this government failed politically and economically to secure the country, it has been using the armed forces negatively. And I don't believe that members of the armed forces are happy with this. Take what happened on November 20, 1999 at Odi. 2,483 Nigerians were mauled to death on the instruction of the Commander-in-Chief to wait in to look for those who are missing. If 30 policemen were missing, your duty as the Commander-in-Chief and the head of the police, because you control the special police, was to send out people to investigate. Why did this happen? How did it happen? Who are the culprits that can never be guilty by association, and that can never be guilty by community, that can never be guilty by communal association? Therefore, the security of the country is in allowing the law to be enforced, by allowing the law to get its course, and not to act outside the Constitution or the laws of the nation, as the General Olusegun Obasanjo had done on several occasions. Tell the trouble between Taraba and the Jukus against the thief, and so on. I mean, I found it inconceivable that a whole army will go after their former chief of army staff, mow down his house, destroy the place, kill his relation, and so on, because something else has been done. Yes, even if it has been done, send in the men who will investigate, and then let the law take its course. So, but to act on the whim and caprices of a man just because you are dissatisfied with him, and therefore you have to ensure that an entire village or an entire town was sacked, is not the best. And what happened in the Middle Belt is condemnable, and I condemn it here in the strongest of terms.
Yes, you talked about the Constitution. What aspect of the 1999 Constitution would you recommend for review to enhance the entrenchment of a lasting democracy in the country?
There are so many areas. There are today 125 sections of the Constitution imposed on us on the 29th of May 1999 that relate to one man alone, the President of Nigeria. And let me say it very clearly, we have a constitutional dictatorship in Nigeria today, not a constitutional democracy. One man determines everything. He determines how the formula, who will give him the advice, who will propose the revenue formula according to section 162, subsection 2. One man determines that. One man determines how the police will be deployed. One man determines how the army should be deployed. One man should determine how the revenue Nigeria will be mobilized. One man will determine how to make laws for this country. Under section 315 of the Constitution, he can make laws for this country. One man has become a legislator. He has become a member of the executive. He can sack a auditor general who says that he has done something wrong in terms of transparency. One man determines everything. I've given you 123 sections of the Constitution which have to be reviewed because we have created a monster in terms of the presidency of our country. That had to go. And as a matter of fact, the area that relates to the masses of our people, which bothers me so much, is that many of the areas, many of the things that relate to the masses, education, health, housing, are not fundamental rights. They are put under chapter 2, but not under chapter 4. It is no use telling a man that he has the right to freedom of expression if he does not know where he's going to lay his head at night. It is no use telling him he has the freedom of expression when he doesn't know where his next meal is going to come from. So the right to food, the right to education, the right to good health must be fundamental rights. So that if he doesn't enjoy all this, he can then call us local government. If you don't do so, I will go to court. It's my right. If you don't do so, I choose the state, then I go to court against the National Assembly. But that is not the case today. There are so many sections of the Constitution that call for review. But that review can only be done not by the National Assembly and not by Mr. President's subcommittee, but by the sovereign national conference of our people.
That is what you intend to do, the 125 sections of the Constitution that you think is responsible for what you call constitutional dictatorship. Chief Gani Fawehinmi of the National Conscience Party and the presidential debate. The Council of State, Chief, is an administrative and part constitutional arrangement to involve past and present Nigerian leaders in evolving strategies for the development of the country. Should you be elected president, Chief, how would you react to the role of the Council of State?
They have some functions, of course, in the Constitution. But there is an aspect of it which annoys or which should annoy any government.
Should you be elected president, Chief, how would you react to the role of the Council of State?
They have some functions, of course, in the Constitution. But there is an aspect of it which annoys or which should annoy any government that is people-driven. When Justice Chukwudifu Okuta conducted investigation for 3 years into abuses of human rights, members of the Council of State ignored him. Specifically, General Buhari ignored him, General Babangida ignored him, General Salami ignored him, and yet these people will sit in the Council of State to advise Mr. President, who himself set up the panel. And these recommendations are of vital importance to this nation. If they want to take the best of the Council of State's objective, then they must submit themselves to the liability imposed by the Constitution and the law. Secondly, by Decree 32 of 1999. It is disgusting that after leaving office, a head of state is to be paid 3.5 million naira every year. We have to build a house for a former head of state at a location that he desires, and it must be a mansion, and we have to provide all sorts of things for him, like free medical services in Nigeria and abroad, for himself and his family. We have to educate his children here or abroad. It's in the Decree 32 of 1999. We have to pay for his maids. We have to pay for his stewards. We have to pay for the exercises of his wives, and so on, under the Decree 32 of 1999. And I wrote to the National Assembly, abrogate this law. They will not abrogate it. I wrote to Mr. President, abrogate it, they won't do so. So these members of the Council of State who have taken the best out of this country, some of them really have looted, and there's no doubt about it. And in addition to what they have made, we are now to suffer for them again till the end of their days. We have to carry the burden again under Decree number 32 of 1999, which has now become an act of the National Assembly. So the Council of State, yes, we may need it, but honestly, it has to be reviewed. I don't understand a country that continues to live in the past without projecting into the future. The excesses of some of the leaders in the past should be subject of criminal investigation instead of allowing them to determine the future of this country by sitting in the Council of State. So I think something will be done to the Council of State if I am the president of this country.
Thank you. Shoaib?
Yes, let me take you back to the issue of, you said, constitutional dictatorship and the various portions of the Constitution that seem to offend you. If elected president, how do you intend to work with the Parliament to address this issue, bearing in mind the fact that the Parliament will definitely be made up of members from different political parties that may not share the same views with your own party?
Thank you very much. Every member of the National Assembly swears to uphold the Constitution of Nigeria and be guided by the provisions of the Constitution of Nigeria. For example, under Section 16 of the Constitution, the major economic sectors must be determined by the National Assembly by resolution. They've not done so. And that section says if it is not determined, therefore, the major economic sector must be determined as it was by the time the Constitution came to force. The importance of that is that all those major sectors must be operated and managed exclusively by the federal government of Nigeria. So you can't set NEPA, you can't set Post Authority, you can't set what our fathers have worked for with their toil, with their blood and their tears. Therefore, I will point to the National Assembly. This is a major area. Anything that concerns the masses of our people, you cannot sell. And all those who are bought, those that have been illegally or unconstitutionally sold, should be very careful, because we will bring them back to the control of the federal government. And I will convince the National Assembly. You go by the law of the nation, and if they don't, I ask for a statement. I have to state a case for the Supreme Court. I will utilize Section 232 of the Constitution and go to the Supreme Court for determination. And once the Supreme Court rules, the National Assembly will be bound. I too will be banned. I will make more use of the court from time to time to state a case and develop the constitutional framework of Nigeria.
What aspect of the 1999 Constitution would you recommend for review to enhance the entrenchment of a lasting democracy in the country?
There are so many areas. There are today 125 sections of the Constitution imposed on us on the 29th of May 1999 that relate to one man alone, the President of Nigeria. And let me say it very clearly, we have a constitutional dictatorship in Nigeria today, not a constitutional democracy. One man determines everything. He determines how the formula, who will give him the advice, who will propose the revenue formula according to Section 162, subsection 2. One man determines that. One man determines how the police will be deployed. One man determines how the army should be deployed. One man should determine how the revenue Nigeria will be mobilized. One man will determine how to make laws for this country. Under Section 315 of the Constitution, he can make laws for this country. One man has become a legislator. He has become a member of the executive. He can sack a legislator general who says that he has done something wrong in terms of transparency. One man determines everything. I've given you 133 sections of the Constitution which have to be reviewed, because we have created a monster in terms of the presidency of our country. That had to go. And as a matter of fact, the area that relates to the masses of our people, which bothered me so much, is that many of the areas, many of the things that relate to the masses, education, health, housing, are not fundamental rights. They are put under chapter 2, but not under chapter 4. It is no use telling a man that he has the right to freedom of expression if he does not know where he's going to lay his head at night. It is no use telling him he has the freedom of expression when he doesn't know where his next meal is going to come from. So the right to food, the right to education, the right to good health must be fundamental rights. So that if he doesn't enjoy all this, he can then call us local government. If you don't do so, I will go to court. It's my right. If you don't do so, I choose the state, then I go to court against the National Assembly. But that is not the case today. There are so many sections of the Constitution that call for review. But that review can only be done not by the National Assembly and not by Mr. President's subcommittee, but by the sovereign national conference of our people.
That is what you intend to do, of the 125 sections of the Constitution that you think is responsible for what you call constitutional dictatorship. Chief Gani Fawehinmi of the National Conscience Party and the presidential debate. The Council of State, Chief, is an administrative and part constitutional arrangement to involve past and present Nigerian leaders in evolving strategies for the development of the country. Should you be elected president, Chief, how would you react to the role of the Council of State?
They have some functions, of course, in the Constitution. But there is an aspect of it which annoys or which should annoy any government that is people-driven. When Justice Chukwudifu Okuta conducted investigation for 3 years into abuses of human rights, members of the Council of State ignored him. Specifically, General Buhari ignored him, General Babangida ignored him, General Salami ignored him, and yet these people will sit in the Council of State to advise Mr. President, who himself set up the panel. And these recommendations are of vital importance to this nation. If they want to take the best of the Council of State's objective, then they must submit themselves to the liability imposed by the Constitution and the law. Secondly, by Decree 32 of 1999, it is disgusting that after leaving office, a head of state is to be paid 3.5 million naira every year. We have to build a house for a former head of state at a location that he desires, and it must be a mansion, and we have to provide all sorts of things for him, like free medical services in Nigeria and abroad, for himself and his family. We have to educate his children here or abroad. It's in the Decree 32 of 1999. We have to pay for his maids. We have to pay for his stewards. We have to pay for the exercises of his wives, and so on. Under the Decree 32 of 1999, and I wrote to the National Assembly, abrogate this law. They will not abrogate it. I wrote to Mr. President, abrogate it. They won't do so. So these members of the Council of State, who have taken the best out of this country, some of them really have looted. There's no doubt about it. And in addition to what they have made, we are now to suffer for them again till the end of their days. We have to carry the burden again under Decree number 32 of 1999, which has now become an act of the National Assembly. So the Council of State, yes, we may need it, but honestly, it has to be reviewed. I don't understand a country that continues to live in the past without projecting into the future. The excesses of some of the leaders in the past should be subject of criminal investigation instead of allowing them to determine the future of this country by sitting in the Council of State. So I think something will be done to the Council of State if I am the president of this country.
Thank you. Shoaib?
Yes, let me take you back to the issue of, you said, constitutional dictatorship and the various portions of the Constitution that seem to offend you. If elected president, how do you intend to work with the Parliament to address this issue, bearing in mind the fact that the Parliament will definitely be made up of members from different political parties that may not share the same views with your own party?
Thank you very much. Every member of the National Assembly swears to uphold the Constitution of Nigeria and be guided by the provisions of the Constitution of Nigeria. For example, under Section 16 of the Constitution, the major economic sectors must be determined by the National Assembly by resolution. They've not done so. And that section says if it's not determined, therefore, the major economic sector must be determined as it was by the time the Constitution came into force. The importance of that is that all those major sectors must be operated and managed exclusively by the federal government of Nigeria. So you can't set NEPA, you can't set Post Authority, you can't set what our fathers have worked for with their toil, with their blood and their tears. Therefore, I will point to the National Assembly. This is a major area, anything that concerns the masses of our people, you cannot sell. And all those who are bought, those that have been illegally and unconstitutionally sold, should be very careful, because we will bring them back to the control of the federal government. And I will convince the National Assembly, you go by the law of the nation, and if they don't, I ask for a statement. I have to state a case for the Supreme Court. I will utilize section 232 of the Constitution and go to the Supreme Court for determination. And once the Supreme Court rules, the National Assembly will be bound. I too will be banned. I will make more use of the court from time to time to state a case and develop the constitutional framework of Nigeria.
Thank you, Chief Gani Fawehinmi. I was just going to do a follow-up to that concerning the judiciary, and which has a critical role to play in the administration of justice and the rule of law in a democracy. So how do you intend to ensure the independence of the judiciary should you become the president of Nigeria?
Thank you very much. Autonomy, autonomy, autonomy. There is no reason why the judiciary, a third arm of government, should be going cap in hand to Aso Rock for anything. It has its own debilitating factor. It reduces the status and prestige and dignity of the third arm of government. That autonomy, I will enhance it. I will ensure that it is not flouted, it is not ignored by my government. That's number one. Number two, do you know that some judges, even of the Supreme Court, are living in a very substandard environment? Some, their generators broke down. They cannot even find fuel because NEPA does not work. The libraries in some judges' quarters are not standard. The allowances are poor. Can you imagine that a Chief Justice in America, who does, the Supreme Court of America does less cases than the Supreme Court of Nigeria? When I was being made at SCN in September 2000, I projected how the judiciary had been ignored from 1958 to 2000, and I showed the statistics. The highest that has ever gone to the judiciary has been less than 2%, sometimes 3% in some cases. But money to the presidency alone can pay, it overrides that of the judiciary 5 times, 6 times. Do you know that a Chief Justice in America can come into this country with his 1 year salary, pay all the salaries of the justices of the Supreme Court, pay all the salaries of the justices of the Court of Appeal, and go back to his own country and still save half of his salary? What about judiciary is that? A judiciary that is not financially buoyant. There was the death of a member of the judiciary in Port Harcourt 2 years ago. He was going to the court. He had no car. He stood at the bus stop and was crushed to death by a taxi. That is the fate of judiciary, you see. Go to all the courts in this country. See how the rules are leaking. Some courts are like pig stick in Nigeria. Some courts don't even have audience tables and so on and chairs. Some courts, the floors are uneven. Some courts, when it's raining, you can't hold session. Some courts, some judges share the court in turns. You go to Enugu, in some magistrate courts, you will sit for 2 hours, another judge will come, another magistrate will come and sit for another 2 hours, and so on and so forth. Apart from the edifice in the Supreme Court that we see there, go to the Court of Appeal.
Thank you very much, Chief Gani Fawehinmi. I'm sure we'll have an opportunity to talk more about the judiciary later. But meanwhile, there is another question that is coming from my colleague.
Yes, Chief. There have been allegations of marginalization and discrimination against women in the scheme of things in the country. How do you intend to address this issue if elected president?
Women are very important to life. Without women, I won't be standing here before you. The agony of putting me inside the womb for 9 months and pouring blood and water on me to come out and to be in this position to come for you, to address you. I always tell people, after God, and I'm a Muslim, and second, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the third person is my mother. Women to me are very important. What is the essence in ignoring? Why can't we have a quota? If you want to appoint 30 ministers, 5 or 6 or 7 must be women. What is wrong with that? The National Congress will pick the best of the best women all over the country. They do not be members of the National Congress Party to be ministers. Then permanent secretaries. There should be a quota for them. But the best can be taken from any part of the federation. Women are not saying that you should just take any woman anyhow. But please, for God's sake, because of their disadvantage, family disadvantage, of not forcing themselves on issues, we need to acknowledge the women affirmation. We need to clearly identify that women have a role to play. And one thing I want to tell you, women don't steal like men. And we put them in a highly responsible position of money.
I guess that's saying it like it is. There's also the other controversy, which perhaps is slightly related to this, and is on the offshore-onshore controversy. How do you plan to resolve the problem within the framework of the relationship between municipal law and an international law and the idea of sovereignty of a nation state?
I don't see any problem in it. Everything boils down to how the resources of this country can be shared. We have Section 162, Subsection 2, that says that the Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission shall advise Mr. President shall make proposals to the National Assembly that should make a formula as to how the money in the Federation account will be shared, because all the resources going to the process go to the Federation account. And there are conditions there based on population, land mass, internal revenue generation, terrain, population density, and in the end, the proviso to it says that at least 30% of what is derived from the resource of a state must be given to that state, at least 30%. I think 30% is too poor. I mean, how can you say 30%? 30% is too poor, but I'm happy the Constitution says at least. I think it should be increased substantially so that those who are being the brewers of water and the hewers of wood of the Nigerian economy do not continue to suffer the poverty that the agonizing poverty they suffer now. The Nigerian Delta people are in agonizing poverty. They have no drinkable water. They have no good hospitals. Their children are not going to school. If you want to talk of abject poverty, you go to Niger Delta, it stares you in the face. It doesn't matter what you call the basin. In 1961, they called it Niger Delta Basin. In 1976, they called it River Basin. In 1992, they called it Upper Deck. Obasanjo has now come with the zone in July 2000, and he said of 2001, they called it NDDC. Terminology does not count. Therefore, what is going to be allocated to Niger Delta or any other place must be tied to certain areas, specific areas of policy, so that they don't have leaders who will siphon the money abroad, like we are beginning to see among their leaders in the Niger Delta, like the governors. Therefore, tie 26% of whatever is given to Niger Delta to education. Tie 25% of what is given to it to agriculture. Tie another percentage in the National Congress Party. We tie 20% to provision of water, and so on and so forth. So when you tie this down, then there will be a monitoring group from the federal government, supervised by my own government, my own presidency, to see that what is tied down to reach the people there, really reach the people. Then again, the idea of anybody coming to prospect for oil and therefore taking the land of anybody and paying one-time compensation is wrong. There must be annual, what we call annuities. They must continue to pay every year.
Thank you very much, Chief Gani Fawehinmi. We'll move from the Niger Delta to area of national security.
Yes, national security. Chief, there is this national concern about security of life and property. Recently, there was a summit of stakeholders on how to ensure security of life and property of Nigerians. What specific steps would you take to bring violent crimes to a tolerable level?
Violent crimes did not just come like manna, like anything from the sky. They are man-made and they are created by policies of government. Nobody wants to be a robber if he has a job to do. 86% of the crimes of Nigeria are caused by poverty. There are 3 types of crimes. Poverty-induced crime, and that accounts for 86%. 2, disease-induced crime. Those who must do a kleptomanics, mania, and they steal because they want to steal. And thirdly, there are those, even if you give them the heaven, they will ask for God. Those people are in the minority. But the most troubling is the percentage of 86%, who are robbing and stealing because of poverty. Let me tell you this. Do you know that 85% of the graduates we produce don't get jobs? Do you know that 97% of those graduates are from poor homes? In the past, it used to be that if you send your children to school and they come out of school, you say your burden is over. Your children will take care of you. Nowadays, when your children leave the university, they come home, you start feeding them again. That is intolerable. So when these young men see how our money is being looted and being used to buy sumptuous cars, build houses, and so on and so forth, and you want them to stay home, wake up in the morning, do nothing. So for God's sake, let us deal with the social problems that have afflicted the masses of our people, then you reduce crime. You can create 1 million policemen in Abuja here. You can create 1 million policemen in Lagos. Crime will continue to grow. When Tafa Balogun was telling us about fire for fire, he doesn't know there's no fire in the belly of his policemen. They are stricken by poverty. They are enveloped by anger. Their own children are poor. They have not eaten in the morning. And they are using old, outdated guns to meet AK-47. So for God's sake, let us deal with social problems. You reduce crimes. Give people jobs. Give people food. Create an atmosphere where people can go to school. Not locking up the university for 8 months because ASU is asking you to pay what the UNESCO says you should do, 26%, and you are giving 1.8% of the whole allocation to education. So these children are angry, and they can turn into crime anytime and be criminals. And then you have yourself to blame with the visit to at night. Look at Lagos today. Every street is an open prison. There is a huge barrier, a huge iron gate in every street. And you know what that's caused? Many people who are pregnant and they want to go to hospital could not deliver because they couldn't go out at night. Some of them have died, the baby have died, the babies have died, the mothers have died, and therefore, for God's sake, we should not cut our noses to spite our faces. Let us deal with the social problems instead of the physical problem of employing more policemen, because policemen themselves are poor.
Yes, let us take you back to the issue of food production. Agriculture has always been the foundation of socio-economic growth of any country.
Pardon?
Agriculture has always been the foundation of socio-economic growth of any country. What area of agriculture will you give priority attention to?
Virtually every area. But more importantly, we will move from subsistence farming to serious and mechanized farming. Secondly, those who want to be farmers will be encouraged by my government. They will be asked to take loans with a moratorium of 10 years, and our government will back such loan with the might of the federal government because we want to produce food. I mean, for example, let me go to the food that we are talking about. Between 1999 and 2003, the price of rice have increased by 150%. Palm oil, 1 liter, which used to sell for 30 naira, has risen to 150 naira. I've given you the basic food that the ordinary man takes, the fried plantain that has risen from 10 naira to 50 naira. Again, take the maize, which is used particularly in this part of the country, it has risen 165%. The basic food like beans had risen 133%, and yam had risen from 60 naira, 50 naira in 1999 to 180 naira per kilo in 2003. So those basic things that are crucial to the people will be invested in, and farmers who want to do mechanized farming will be encouraged. For example, you take the issue of fertilizer. In 1999, fertilizer was selling for 700 naira. Today, it is 1,400 naira. Irrigation does not reach the people. I traveled the length and breadth of Ekiti the other day. I visited 16 towns. You could not believe it. There are 8 dams in Ekiti. None of them is functional. The farmers are crying in Ekiti, and they are crying in every part of Nigeria. They are crying in every part of Nigeria that is there any government in this country? The answer to most people in this country today is there is no governance of our country. To give us food, to provide mechanism for food, then subsidy. I will be involved in subsidy. I will pamper the farmers of this country to the extent that Nigerians have food, and those who do not have access to it will get coupons. Coupons that will be issued by my government, and we shall create silos for them to go, and offices to go to, and shops to go to present the coupon so that they don't starve. Once you take food out of the man's problem, the rest is easy to be solved.
Thank you. As a follow-up to that, Chief Gani Fawehinmi, over 90% of Nigeria's foreign earnings come from oil and gas. You've said you diversify into agriculture as well. Perhaps this is not good enough for the future of our country. We would want to know why, if you think we need to diversify. And if I'm saying that perhaps it's not good enough that over 90% of Nigeria's foreign earnings come from oil and gas. And if you think that this is not good enough for our future, why do you consider this? And if you have any program on the concept of diversification of the Nigerian economy from the point of view of your party, the National Conscience Party.
Of course, there is need for diversification. It is in our blueprint. We have it in the blueprint. But let me talk about even the resource that generates 86% of our resource, 86% of our earning, the oil. We have 4 refineries in Nigeria. See the queue outside. Every nook and corner of this country, the queue is there. People are suffering. Businesses have been lost. 4 refineries that can only manage 100,000 barrels of crude oil per day. And yet, NNPC says it allocates 300,000 barrels. We produce 2,145,000 barrels per day. Our refineries cannot refine our crude oil. Now, because of steady propensity that has engulfed the governance of this country, we are importing oil, refined crude oil, refined oil. We have refined our oil, we are taking it from abroad, refined petroleum, brought it to this country. Let us take the Iranian example. Iran is only a country of 76.1 million people. Iran is the second largest producer of oil in OPEC. Iran produces 3.8 million barrels per day. Iran has 9 refineries. Iran enjoys a cumulative combination of 1.8 million barrels per day, which are refined in their own country, so that nobody suffers that we are suffering today in Nigeria. Therefore, Iran also exports refined products. We don't export refined products. The one we produce, we cannot refine. It is just because of stealing that people then make use of imported money, imported product. And then secondly, there's another danger, which is very crucial. In Iran, for example, anything that is going out of Iran, whether refined or crude, must go in Iranian ship. Iran has the largest fleet of ships that convey petroleum products out of Iran, 25 of them in the whole of the OPEC. But Nigeria, we don't even know how much leave this country. And when they go outside this country, the port of disembarkation, it is more on the manifested documents than what we receive here. So the actual money that we lose every day by the non-vigilance of our government or collaboration of our government with those who are running us aground is enormous. So let us manage what we have first. We are not managing it well because of gross abuse of power and gross corruption. Secondly, that's application. If you use the oil money to engage the attention of the Nigerian people, all groups, for example, you put for 26% on education. It is not only the teachers you are going to engage, the builders that will build the houses, the artisans that will work there, the printers that will print the exercise books, and the universities that will cater for these students, and so on and so forth.
We'll let you, Gani, if I will finish that sentence. Please complete the sentence, sir.
Now, so it will have a multiplier effect if you use the money to develop the economy of our country. But they are not using the money to develop the economy. As I've told you, more than 45% is lost in mismanagement, abuse of power, and corruption. So that is what, but if we use that 45% to manage the economy, to diversify in various fields, mechanized farming, good education, good health facilities. For example, it was easy for Babangida the other day to create 2 arms of SDP and NRC in each local government. If we turn each local government into hospital, each of the 2 arms into clinic, and we use these clinics for the needs of our people in the local government and put money there, the health of the people will be improved. So diversification, yes, but let us manage what we have first. We are not managing it, we are stealing it.
Thank you very much. I think, Shoaibu, yes.
Yes, Chief, we wonder, do you have any program for leisure and recreation and the development of sports?
Yes, sports are very important, but the primary purpose of our seeking office is to improve the quality of life of our people first and foremost. Sports, there are many people in the private sector who should be encouraged to be involved in sports administration and sports development. I think the time has come for the government to take its hand off sport development and allow the private sector to develop sports. That's how it is done in other civilized countries. The football should be left to the private sector. The league should be left to the private sector. Why should I employ Minister of Sports to come and govern how sports will be administered in the private sector when I have greater things to do for the masses of these people? Even the sportsmen must eat before they leave home. They must have home to live in. They must have good health. They must have mass transportation system that will be very helpful to them. So please, sports and leisure should be left to the private sector. And the government must concentrate on a more serious area, which even the sportsmen themselves will be proud of. Good employment, good food, good education, good health, good housing, good water, good electricity, and so on and so forth. And above all, good security of life and property. So let's leave the sports to the private sector and let them manage sports.
Thank you, Chief Gani Fawehinmi. I would have loved us to touch on the arts as well, since we're talking sports now, where Nigerians have also proved their mettle, in the development of the arts. What kind of encouragement would your government give to the development of the arts?
Arts, the culture of the people. The culture of the people. It is incumbent, of course, for government to be involved in the culture, in the development of the culture of the people. Art is a way of life. Art is the people talking. And that is why in most serious countries of the world, they have special museums for this, for that, and for everything. We will encourage the development of art as a government policy. We will not leave it to the private sector. Museums will dot every place. And when you are talking of art, I also want to tie it up with libraries. Every local government in this country, I am going to create a library in every local government because it's an aspect of art and education. The culture of the people must be understood in terms of books, in terms of visual aids, in terms of painting and song, drama. This cannot be left to the idiosyncrasies of the private sector because art is life. Culture of the people is the way of life. And the National Conscience Party government will invest in it.
That's good to know. I think Shoaibu was going to take you on another issue.
I wonder whether we will talk about the role of religion.
Yes.
And the Nigerian state.
Thank you. Religion is important to every human being. A man who has no religion is psychologically, emotionally dead. Religion is an acceptance of God Almighty. Christianity accepts God Almighty. Islam accepts God Almighty. Therefore, religion should be encouraged, but it must be an encouragement that does not promote conflict in society. An encouragement that does not place one religion over another. By encouragement, let every religion be practiced. by the religionists the way they want their religion to be practiced. Dictation must not come from any government, whether federal, state, or local. And that is why in Section 10 of the Constitution, no state government can declare a particular religion in a particular state. And Section 38 says, nobody shall discriminate against Nigerian on basis of religion. But recently we have been having religious clashes. We had it in 1981, the Matasini religious clash. We also had it recently. We had it in Kano, we had it in Bauchi, we had it everywhere. It is simply because the path of communication have broken down. So it is that path of communication that must be encouraged by government, so that my government, every month, I will gather the leaders of both Muslim, Christians, together. We rub minds about problems of religion in the country. We give advice here and there. But to impose a particular decision on religion or any government, I will not do that. Let everybody practice religion the way he wishes. But my duty is to encourage every religion to see that there's no friction, there's no mayhem, there's no killing, there's no burning of the house, and there's no insecurity of life and property.
Thank you very much, Chief Gani Fawehinmi, Chief Gani Oyeshola Fawehinmi of the National Conscience Party, the presidential candidate. We thank you. It's been an exciting moment. Before we round off, we would love to hear from you again in just 2 minutes, closing remarks.
Thank you very much. I want a country where the people have a place. I want a country where the masses who have been subjected to much poverty, deprivation, starvation, have a place. I want a country where only few people, where millions of Nigerians are ignored by few people. I want a country that barrier should be broken, where few people ignore millions of Nigerians who constitute the majority of this country. I don't want to be in a country where God has created the wealth for everybody, and yet those who are governing us ignore, oppress, cheat, isolate the poor masses of our people. No, that's not the country I dream for. And that is why I'm in this position today, that I want to take the power from them so that the masses of our people do not suffer again from lack of employment, from lack of food, from lack of housing, from lack of jobs, from lack of water, from lack of electricity, and a country that I want to establish free of corruption and starvation, free of all this dictatorship that we have been encountering over the years. I want to create a country where I want to establish a country, a governance where there should be what we call the best for all, not the best for a few and the worst for the majority. I don't accept that.
Thank you very much, Chief Gani Fawehinmi, presidential candidate